Hey everybody, welcome to the GMG review. Today I'm taking a look at Rangers of Shadowdeep, but not this copy of Rangers of Shadowdeep. This, believe it or not, is the copy of Rangers of Shadowdeep that I've been playing with for 3 years. This is the original Microsoft Word draft that Joe sent me way back when, and every single Rangers of Shadowdeep episode I've filmed since then, I've had this as my rulebook. Until back in December when Chris at Modiphius was nice enough to send me this glorious thing, the Ultimate Edition Rangers of Shadowdeep in beautiful, I'm pretty sure it's vegan leather, it's fake leather, but it's embossed with the Barrett Stanley logo of like the silhouette of the Ranger. It has like just a beautiful like finish, and it's the complete rules in an Ultimate Edition. So this is the updated version that you can get off Drive-Thru RPG as well. I'll link it below if you want to get it digitally. I've been playing with it digitally and as print-offs of a Word document for 3 years with no issue. But if, like me, you want to own this thing in glorious, like, beautiful hardcover, this is the Modiphius edition, and it is fantastic. Take a look at that. Again, a Barrett Stanley illustration of the classic Ranger. And I think that Chris and Joe should be justifiably proud of this book. The paper quality is really nice. It has this kind of like almost textbooky like tooth to it. It's a really, really nice edition of the book. So here we have our core of Rangers of Shadowdeep. Now you've watched me play it a million times, but it has a beautiful introduction by Joe. I noted in the Deluxe Edition and sort of like what the difference is between it and the 2018 and what you need to play. So if you're not familiar with Rangers of Shadowdeep, it is a miniatures agnostic solo and cooperative adventure game for you know, 2 to or 1 to I don't know 4 players probably it'll go to. I'm sure there's actually a number written in here, but I've played it with 3, I think, at the most, and it works just fine. Use any miniatures you want. Use D20s as your core thing. You need a deck of cards for the events and the random spawns and stuff. Your Ranger sheet, a 30 by 30 table, so a 2.5 by 2.5. Although, if you're going to play with a 3x3, just play with a 3x3, and then just extend the deployment zones from everything. That's just the easy way to do it. You have an invisible deployment area basically around the table. And then we have the core stats of a Ranger. So that's what you start off doing. You're going to build a Ranger from scratch, basically, with this stat line. The sort of storyline for the game is that the Kingdom of Alador is being encroached upon by a thing called the Shadowdeep. It's like the nothing in the never-ending story. It's just a darkness that swallows the land. Evil monsters and critters take everything over. And it's just slowly destroyed every kingdom that neighbors Alador until Alador is what's left. And so no one has any idea how to stop it. Even Alador figures it's eventually going to fall. But what they do is they send their Rangers, their like sort of elite task force of fighters, into the Shadowdeep to try and delay it as long as possible. Assassinate the leaders, blow up all of their like buildings, and just try and like disrupt them as much as they can to try and figure out how to stop it. And no one really knows how. So that's where we're at. We're at a kind of like 11th hour sort of like special forces, medieval, you know, strike teams going down into the darkness kind of a thing. Think of it like Mordor. And you get to make your Ranger however you want. So every Ranger shares a core stat line, and you get 10 build points to try and stat them out. So you can increase their stats a little bit in the beginning. You can then also buy them skills and abilities. There's a skill table, kind of like, it's a bit reminiscent of if you ever played Rifts, the Rifts skill table, where Rifts were kind of a separate column off the left-hand side, where everybody kind of had things they needed to be able to do. And then you can also buy heroic abilities. And they're kind of your like superhero once per game things. Like you can distract somebody, you can focus to like do a skill roll really well. You can shove someone to push them, you can parry to get like a bonus to your defensive, but you can't actually do any damage. You can do a quick blow, cast at additional time, stuff like that. They're kind of like feats in D&D. And of course, you can earn more of all of these things as you progress and level up in the game. You can get spells, so you can be a wizard if you want as well. And then you have your skills. Now, everybody has these skills at like a 0 level, but by learning extra points into them and putting build points into them, you get bonuses to the die roll to do those skills. So things like acrobatics, ancient lore, and every adventure, you can have instances and things that happen where you might have to make a skill check. So like you have to swim, or pick a lock, or read runes. And that's kind of the fun of it, is he has this list of common sort of like adventuring activities that you could just be better at than others. And so my first Ranger ever, Braun, I mean, he was mostly brawn. He was a fighter. He solved things with his sword and shield and his bow. He's probably the most famous. People who've been watching the Rangers series that I've done, Ranger that I have. But my new one is more of a learned individual. He's more of a lover, not a fighter. And he's like a spellcaster and a bit more like built into the skills instead. So you really have a lot of choice in how you build your Ranger. Then you can spend your recruitment points on followers. Now you get less followers during a game if more Rangers show up. So when you play it cooperatively, you don't get your full follower list, although they kind of stay behind in the stable. You bring a few men with you, because the idea is if you bring too big a party, you're going to attract more bad guys, and they're going to come fight you. Everybody gets some gear. So you have 5 slots. It doesn't cost you anything. You just build out your Rangers however you want. And then you have your basic rules. So if you've played Frostgrave, you'll probably be pretty familiar with Rangers. It has kind of an alternating activation system where your Ranger is always going to kind of have the initiative, but then as you go down further, the creatures are going to get to go, and then your companions go last, and then finally, if any random events happen, they're going to trigger, and that's what the deck of playing cards is for. So when you play with Rangers, you have the ability also to group activate during the Ranger phase. So if you're 1 player, you can activate it to 2, 2 players 1, and if it's 3 or more players up to 4, you're only activating a single model. You're not getting a group activate at all. But it does give you the ability to kind of get the jump on the creatures. The creatures then go, they can have kind of a standard AI where there's a point of interest in the table that they'll walk towards or patrol around, or they might have specific AIs based on the scenario. And what's great about that is it's left open-ended so that Joe can write, or you could write, adventures and scenarios where the creatures behave however you want. Then your remaining companions go. If anybody didn't group activate with the Ranger, they activate, and then you have the event phase. When you activate, you move, you can phase 360, and then you can do things like do other actions. You can shoot, you can fight a combat, whatever. You can also move again, but if you move twice, you move at half rate. So it's a 2-action basic core system. You can lose actions if you become poisoned. Certain spell effects can cause you to lose actions and stuff too, or status effects. Whenever you make a skill and stat roll, you have a target number, so it's basically a TN of whatever you need to accomplish. So if something's hard, it might have a really high TN. If it's easy, it might be low. So like a door that's just kind of like bolted might have a pick lock of like 8. If it's got like an iron bar across it and 25 locks, it might be TN 20. And you're going to D20 plus your skill, try and beat that number. An opposed roll, both players D20. Whoever rolls highest with modifiers, of course, wins. So that's opposed, like skill check or stat check would be a fight check versus the fight of your opponent. So you both get your bonus to the dice roll, and whoever wins, they compare it to the armor, just like in Frostgrave. Opposed shooting check would be the same thing, but one person using their shoot value, the other person using their fight value to try and defend. Rules for multiple and single combats, shooting and critical hits. Now, critical hits are the new Frostgrave ones, not the old Frostgrave ones, so only your Rangers and companions can get them. You don't have to worry about a rando skeleton like poking you in the eye and you just instantly die from double damage. It's a +5 to your damage score. Rules for terrain. Poison disease. So during adventures, you can actually start to go hungry and lose your health. You can get diseased. If you get diseased, things can go bad for you, and you can have like bonuses or penalties to your stat line. And you can keep all those things too. Using your heroic abilities and spells, it's usually just once per turn. And then treasure tokens. Now this is a big difference between Frostgrave and Rangers. Treasure doesn't slow you down. So there's a lot less emphasis on grabbing treasure, and it's more of a bonus in this game. Your basic AI for creatures. And look at this great Barrett Stanley art. I love stuff like this, like just the stairwell going down. And I love the sepia and black and white stuff as well. Just the right amount of like color. Now you've also got your leadership ability, which adds to your companion total. And whenever you have companions, if you're only playing it by yourself, you have your build, like your actual companion amount that you can hire in a maximum of 7. 2 players, it's half minus 10. So you get less companions the more people show up. 3 players, it's a third, and then 4 players, you get 1/10 of your base recruitment points. And then you can hire all kinds of cool companions too. So even though your Ranger is kind of you in the game, your companions can fill all kinds of class roles. You can have an Arcanist to cast spells. So if you're a fighter, you can hire an Arcanist to come with you, an Archer, a Barbarian, a Conjurer, a Guardsman. Animals, so hounds, like a hound, just a dog, a warhound, or a bloodhound to track with. And you can see they have different limited skill rolls they can do, so you get a tracking bonus, kind of cool. Knights, man-at-arms, and raptors, so a bird, want a bird. There is expanded companions as well in most of the supplements. Recruit is like a young ranger, a rogue, savage, kind of like a barbarian, but different armaments and stuff. Swordsman, Templar, tracker, and we're into the campaign. So just like any good campaign game, you're able to sort of have your guys earn points. They can get injuries and die and stuff. They can have their toes cut off, their legs smashed, arms crushed, lose fingers or eyes, and if you're not careful, of course, you can die. Now, a ranger always adds 1 to the roll, so he only dies on a 5% chance during a game. But every time you play a mission, it could be 3 or 4 encounters, and you can't actually typically like go and fully recover until afterwards. So things can go bad relatively quickly. Now, luckily, there's ways to augment and sort of like change your rolls as well too. One of my favorite skills for Rangers of Shadowdeep is just I think it's like something Destiny. You get to reroll a die. So I usually save that for if I roll that 1 and I can reroll it. And then Ranger levels and experience. Now, you do gain experience a lot like in Frostgrave for various kills. All the monsters in the bestiary in here actually have an XP value for when they die, which is nice because it helps you to write your own adventures and stuff too. But your leveling is very different. You don't get to power level in Rangers, and I really like that. At Rangers level 1, 5, 9, 13, 17, and 21, you just improve your skills. At 2, 6, 10, 14, 18, and 22, you improve your stats. At 3, 7, 11, 15, 19, 23, you get recruitment points. And at 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, you get a heroic ability. So you can't just dump all your bonuses into the thing you want. You'll have to wait a few levels in between to do so. And it means you can't just dump your fight stat to max or whatever. Now, your companions also progress, but you don't have to worry about any kind of experience for them. They just get progression points based on surviving the game. And at 10, sorry, not even the game, sorry, the encounter. So you can actually earn several progression points over the course of a mission. If you live through a mission, basically, you get 2 progression points. If you like get knocked out but survive, you get 1. So you always get something, and it basically means that after 5 games, as long as you didn't get knocked out, you're getting a level up. And you also get to kind of develop them as you like. So health first, then you choose a fight or a shoot, you choose to up a skill, will, heroic abilities, health, skill, will, and heroic ability. Treasure's fairly like I guess unmagical compared to the stuff, because you don't really need it. You can just take the equipment you want out of the ranger sort of like stores in Alador. So the only stuff that's kind of like important is like magic items and weapons, but even those, they last for the game typically. They're not super powerful compared to in Frostgrave. And there's a huge list of those, and then your missions. So you have an event deck, and your first mission here is the Missing. It gives you an example mission to play through with zombies in a village. You're going to have your event cards for the end of every turn, and that is you flip a card and things can happen. That's kind of the fun random part of the adventure. Then your challenge level, you want to make it harder, and your outcomes experience, the bonus experience you get for all of the things that you do. And it's nice to not really read ahead too much. So I don't want to spoil these too much, because you really are going to have a better time if you don't look at all the things that could happen. They're more fun to kind of experience for yourself. You get a full bestiary, so I'm not going to show you all the missions, basically. Everything from bloodbats to civilians, dark roots, flesh golems, ghouls, ghoul fiends, spiders and snakes, shadow knights, terrorwings, trolls, vultures, wolves, and zombies. So just a nice list of common things. And then finally you have Burning Light, which is a full campaign. So those missions that were at the beginning there were just to teach you how to play the game. Burning Light is a complete like additional campaign for level 5 to 15 Rangers. The assumption being you play through these first couple missions, you become up to level 5, and then you jump in and do Burning Light. And again, I don't want to ruin it for you. My favorite part of Burning Light is the events take the form of a, and this is actually something that I'm happy to say that I kind of helped contribute to, take the form of paragraphs numbered a lot like a fighting fantasy novel, which I think is a cool trick. And then other adventures. So the expansions, things like Blood Moon, Temple of Madness, Ghost Stone, and Incinerator, all add new stuff, and then a beautiful sheet and a lovely index. There are some official miniatures from North Star, Nick Eyer's North Star military figures, and some ads for other stuff from Modiphius. And that beautiful Barrett Stanley art again at the back. And there it is, a glorious hardcover version of Rangers of Shadowdeep. I'm going to go through the next couple weeks and do a bunch of these solo play games as reviews that I haven't managed to either get a copy of, or I was holding off until we were going back in lockdown, because I thought that was the best time to kind of show them off. And this is probably, if you love fantasy games, you love adventure games, this is probably, I would say, probably the best one on the market right now. As far as giving you a great, you can play it by yourself, you can play it with your family at home if you want, or your kids even. And a really clear guide. Joe's great doing like a painting guide, a selection of here's the monsters you need for these missions. and a really rewarding like 3 or 4 game experience for every story that you're going to go and do. So if you have the chance to get a copy from Modiphius, this is a beautiful, beautiful edition. But if you just want to grab this exact same copy digitally, I'll link it below, and you can check it out right now. So stay tuned next week for another solo adventure game that you can check out. Till then, I'm Ash. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to support the channel, of course, like and subscribe and hit the little bell below so you get notifications when I post future content. I do post stuff 7 days a week. If you want to support the channel further, you can, of course, buy a t-shirt through Spreadshirts, buy a measuring gauge or objective markers from Death Ray Designs, or, of course, most importantly, there is Patreon. Patreon is what makes all this possible, keeps the lights on, pays for the studio costs, pays for the equipment, model costs, and everything else, and most importantly, puts food in my kids' bellies and a roof over their heads. Big thanks to everyone, past, future, who supported me. I do this stuff because of you guys, and of course, I will continue doing it as long as I can.